Poke the Bear is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
And welcome into Poke the Bear, presented by Prize Picks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play just $5. And we're presented by Game Time. Go use the promo code CLNS to get $20 off that first purchase. Terms do apply. I am Evan Marinofsky. That is Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Camp is underway. We're officially in. We've made it. We got through the summer. We got through some of the boring months, and we are here. And boy, oh boy, Conor, first press conference of the entire season, because I'm not counting captain's practice. First press conference of the entire season. Don Sweeney comes in, guns blazing. Had the spitting all over themselves podcast or spitting up on themselves podcast. He had that. Yes. He had, he was like in with a team of comedy writers, like workshopping, like, what's going to be the best dig I can make at them? And they're like, what if we did the spitting up on themselves podcast? It's like, yes, that's the one. I need to find a time to use. But he was coming in guns blazing at everybody. And he almost
threw the podium at Ty. Like it was
almost took out a hockey stick to just bat him down on the head.
Yes.
But quite the juice, as Don Sweeney said. He said, I think he was referring to both himself and reporters, that we like juice. And there was quite a bit of juice from day one. We're doing this after day two. A little less drama on day two. Just line combinations, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yes.
And look, I see the YouTube comments. I see Twitter. I know people are sick of this Jeremy Swayman situation. Here's something. We also are kind of sick of this Jeremy Swayman situation. But we can't avoid it. We're not going to not talk about it. Like, we're like, oh, okay, let's focus on the guys on the ice when the number one goalie is currently not dressing and is is looking for a new contract. We'll start here, Conor. Are you panicked?
I'm not panicking yet. I think that Don Sweeney mentioning, December 1st and, the fact that is really the true deadline. And, we will say we've mentioned this time and time again on multiple podcasts, multiple shows, like, get to training camp. Everyone's in the same building. Everyone's around. Everyone's locked in. They'll reach a solution at some point, but it's not like October 8th is the true deadline. October 8th is their season opener in Florida, which I think we'll get to it, but you don't really want Jonas Korpisalo and Brendan Bussey being your two guys there in Florida, banner raising, really good team on the road. Not ideal. But beyond that, like the real deadline is December 1st in terms of if Swayman isn't signed by then, he's out for the whole year. He's not coming back. He misses the whole playoffs. You hope it doesn't get to that point. I know William Nylander on his last contract with Toronto kind of got to the 11th hour there. I believe is the same agency as who's representing Jeremy Swayman. So you're noticing a trend there. You hope it doesn't get to that point. But it does feel like as much as amongst all the different like rumors swirling about what one side is asking for, how close they are to a deal. It does feel like, at least for right now, and again, all it takes is one phone call to kind of change that. Both sides are pretty dug in right now, and it's kind of who's willing to make that first concession. Is it going to wait until it plays out in the season? Because again, then you run you run the risk from both Swayman and the Bruins camp of, if you get into the regular season, you're hurting the overall team. And, I think you look at the state of the Bruins goalie grouping right now with Korpisalo and Bussey, you don't feel great about it right now. But like if, again, crazier things have happened, you look at the track record. If they're like solid in net and it's a goalie by committee and like Bussey ends up playing at a high level out of the gate or Korpisalo plays great, then all of a sudden it's Swayman that's losing leverage. I'm not saying that all of a sudden like Korpisalo starts his time in Boston 3-0-0 with a shutout or something like that. And they're like, well, just trade Swayman. Screw it.
Goodbye.
Like, I don't think getting that. But whether it's from Swayman's perspective or the Bruins, the more this plays out, the more you don't move forward without a contract, someone's going to lose out. And honestly, it's kind of a lose-lose, however way you want to put it. Like, you need Swayman in net, and Swayman right now needs this valuable time. It's not like he's just going into another year, and every year is different, but this is a guy that is expected to be your number one goalie. His most games he's played in a year is 44 games. You need to get him ramped up for that. Every day that he's not at the rink, getting the conditioning work done, working with Bob Essenza and having those resources, it's going to hurt his overall game. And he can, hit the ice. And I'm not, we've seen from Jeremy Swayman so far, right, over his time here in Boston, like, guy is very committed to his craft, stayed in Boston the entire year. I'm sure he's going to be putting the work in, but when you're not in the building every day with your teammates, with Bob Essenza, with all these things, it is going to hurt you. And obviously it's going to hurt the Bruins, barring something miraculous going on or something we don't foresee with the Busty Korpisalo tandem, which who would have thought that would have been what we'd be talking about at this point in September, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that tandem, the Bruins are a pretty good structured team. I know last year was a little bit of a deviation from what had been the norm for so long.
Yeah.
They are good on D, at least on paper going into this year. They're better up front. Like, would it shock me if Korpisalo and Busty at least were serviceable? No, I don't think it would shock me. I mean, are you getting Swayman-like production? Are you clearly first in the Atlantic after a month with that tandem? I don't think so. But again, the Bruins are a good team. So, anything can happen. But you also can be sunk by bad goaltending, where it's like, they come out of October and that tandem is not working. And the Bruins are like, all right, let's hash something out now. And then even in that case, though, and look, Swayman is most likely getting work done, getting skating work in somewhere else, doing stuff. It's not like he's going to not skate for however long. And then let's just say it's like October 8th and he's just back. And now it's all right, first time in net, go get him, Tiger. So that will not be the case. But you are if you are looking at that December 1st deadline as the target date, which is scary to everybody, when you come back, let's say, as I mentioned, let's say that tandem wasn't working. Well, it's not like you can just come right back in and it's like, all right, we're good now. Like, you're putting a guy in with no preseason games in that case, not a ton of no practice work with this team. So again, that's another scary element to that as well. I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, if Korpisalo and Busty are great, well, then, it's going to flip the tides on Swayman. And it's like, well, if they stink and they're not good, it's not good for the Bruins. And that's really the worst case scenario, because you're getting a guy coming in who is not fully prepared for that kind of workload. In terms of my panic, I think it's very clear they are not close. Sweeney, in our jobs, Connor, this, can't always believe people in authority, can't always believe what they're saying. Sometimes you can tell when someone's lying. A lot of times they just withhold information. And now obviously Sweeney won't go into detail on, oh, we're looking at 6 years. He's looking at 4, blah, blah, blah. He won't do that. He made himself clear on that. But I do think there was genuine disappointment and emotion in that they are not close. I think he gave us that much. In terms of when I think it gets done, I still think it's sometime in camp. I do. And I know that Swayman's side, his agency has dug their feet in before, not budged. I get that. I don't know, though. And I also wonder, there's also the other end of it where, you had multiple people either reporting or insinuating on Tuesday that a deal was close, or, Courtney Cox from WEI said it was done. Now, again, it's not true. Sweeney said as much, but where's that coming from? Who's saying that? Because even if they're not hearing from people directly involved in negotiations, somewhere someone has a reason to think that. Now, maybe it's people pushing agendas. I don't know. I'm not getting inside that stuff. But how does that happen? Because, and Darren Drager even reported that there are good vibes surrounding this. So, it's trending in the right direction. I don't know. That's where it's sort of conflicting, where I still believe, and I'm still going to hold on to my prediction of it gets done in the next 1 to 2 weeks. And even then, that's not perfect, but that's why I'm not fully panicking yet. I'm not there yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think you hear from, especially the insiders who've been doing this for a long time, right? And again, even that's kind of been tough to gauge, right? Because you got in this corner, Elliot Friedman, who again is one of the most respected NHL insiders, saying that there's still philosophical differences, which is like not what you want to hear when it's a contract that can have a wide variance between term, payout, all that stuff. Not great. And then the next day, Darren Dreger, who's also been in this business for a long time, is very well connected, mentioning like, yeah, good vibes. They're making progress. I still lean towards the fact that I don't think it's obviously, as Don Sweeney pushed back against on Wednesday. I don't think they're not speaking to each other. I think there is good communication. It's all about finding that concession, right? And finding out how much you're willing to give in terms of the years. I think it's probably the payout has to be probably the most contentious thing, because even I think Friedman had a follow-up article on Wednesday or Thursday mentioning that like the Bruins and Swayman are still looking at a long-term deal, which is, I think, promising. I think that's what we mentioned before. That would be the best case scenario for the Bruins and Swayman, as long as the money's right. But that's the issue. If Swayman wants to be here long-term, you have to imagine he wants something that coincides with how the market's going to go. But again, we've talked about this time and time again. Like, you go down the rabbit hole as to what his value is, how it weighs against the rest of the goalie market, the cap, all that stuff. It's really, really tough to map out where this is going to go. But I still think when you look at like the multiple nuclear options there, ending with December 1st, you know, for a guy like Swayman, who again is going into such a critical year for his own development, and this is a guy that is not has always been very confident in his own abilities, doesn't really waver, all those things. But still, for a guy going into his first year as the featured number one guy, the weight of the season kind of rests on your shoulders in this role. I think there has to be the awareness from, I think, all sides that the longer he holds out, doesn't benefit him, and it certainly doesn't benefit the Bruins. I don't think, even if the Bruins 10% of their thinking is like, you know what, let's roll the dice with Blessing Korpisalo. We are confident to see what they can do out of the gate, and they'll hurt his leverage. They play well. Maybe that's the mindset you have to take once you get to October 5th or something like that. But I don't think they want to reach that scenario, nor do I think Swayman wants to be on the outside looking in once the season really starts ramping up. It just doesn't benefit anyone once you get to that point.
And look, they're going to say, Montgomery players are going to say, we don't care about that. You know, and Montgomery basically said as much. You know, I'm focused on the guys that are here. You know, that's Donnie's thing to care about. But at some point, be it at the end of camp, if this isn't done, or the beginning of the regular season, or, you know, a month into the regular season, guys do care about that stuff. Because as we said, like, if Korpisalo and Bussy, if that tandem comes in and they're great, well then awesome. Woo. Like, the systems are working and those guys are good and we can win with anybody. But if it doesn't work, you got guys, you know, you got defensemen who are, you know, properly covering guys, and let's say, you know, pucks are just kind of flying in left and right. And it's like, all right, dude, like, you know, we all want you to get paid, but we also need to win hockey games. Wrap this up. And, you know, like, we got to win games. And so I think you have that end of it too, where it's like, you know, and you know, we've talked before about, you know, Marchand, you know, we were kind of questioning whether or not that was a veiled shot, you know, at captain's practice a couple weeks ago. But you also wonder about other guys. I mean, other guys have gone through negotiations before. And I think, you know, there could be that sentiment of, and I'm saying could, because I'm not, you know, we don't know this for sure. There could be that sentiment of like, well, I did it. Why can't you? Like, you got to make concessions. You can't just get every single thing you want. And I think Jeremy Swayman also has to worry about the tide turning on him. Not just, you know, in his own locker room and stuff, but fans. Not saying that means everything, but this is a hot market. This is fans care. Fans care a lot. And I think that, you know, that is something to consider in this case. We are pro players getting the bag, by the way. We're just trying to give every little element here. So I'm not trying to be like, he should be underpaid considerably. You know, he should take no money. He should play for free. He should be lucky he's wearing the Spoke B. That's what he should be doing. That'll get clipped and taken out of context, which will be really funny.
Yeah, of course.
Anyways, our friends over at Prize Picks, quick message from them. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become part of the Prize Picks community today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on Prize Picks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. Big questions going into the football season. Will Patrick Mahomes throw for more or less than 267.5 yards one week? Will Jalen Hurts throw for 240.5 passing yards another? Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus because it's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, back to the show. So we've discussed Swayman, and we've discussed the tandem. Is there anything we're missing? I assume we're going to talk about this a lot going forward, so I don't want to kill everything with Swayman.
No, I mean, I feel like if there are updates, we'll have plenty of time to kind of dissect this as it goes on, right? So I think right now it's status quo. And again, all of it kind of come down to just that one phone call when whether it's an extra million you tack on, another year, something like that. Sometimes that's all it takes to kind of shift the gears there. So right now it's just the waiting game continues. And the more it goes on, again, I'm with you, Evan, like a week or two, maybe, but every week it's going to be like the next time we do a Bruins beat or poke the bear, anxiety is going to ramp up a little bit. So, and I even think like Sweeney mentioning December 1st was a good way to, I mentioned this with Ty Anderson. We did our podcast as well. Like Sweeney is pretty like forward thinking, pretty calculating in terms of, how he, what he says during press conferences, stuff like that. I think mentioning that is a good way to kind of reiterate and get ahead of like, oh, there is a hard deadline. Like this could go further, like, and kind of mapping out what the stakes could be. I don't think, hopefully we don't get to that point. I don't want to be doing a Swayman watch thing in the middle of November.
No, please, no. That would be every episode. That would be horrible.
Yes. So not looking forward to that if that happens. So I'll be in the same boat as you. I think we're looking at a week or two, and hopefully this gets settled and he's back and getting ready and getting up to speed pretty soon because they're going to need him.
One other thing Sweeney mentioned, and this is something else that I kind of just came to mind, was he was asked about the Linus Ullmark trade and, whether or not these two things were connected. And he basically said that they're different roads. We operated separate of each other on that. Did they screw themselves a little bit with the Linus Ullmark thing? I still don't think they did. And I still believe Swayman's going to be here. Now, if they end up trading Swayman, that's a different story. But you had a very limited window to trade Linus Ullmark. And you know damn well that if they went into this year with the goalie tandem still intact and passed up opportunities to trade Linus Ullmark, specifically for a first-round pick, we would be complaining about it. Everybody would be complaining about it. So I don't think they boxed themselves in with that, but I'm curious what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of moving pieces with this, right? It's very easy just to generally, be like, oh, they should have done this ahead of time. Had, like Michael Corleone. I'm sorry, it's Godfather reference. I'm very sorry.
I'll cover my ears.
Yeah. The thing is this Michael Corleone thing of in one fell swoop, you sign Swayman and then trade Ullmark an hour later on these things. It doesn't work out that way. Like you've got a situation with Ullmark where you're trying to move him. He had a no movement clause. We'll probably never get it from Ullmark, but you hear the rumors that they were trying to move him beforehand, that some trades were negated even leading up to the trade deadline, right? Like, so it wasn't just you could have flipped him for anything. You finally have this window where he'd accept a trade to Ottawa And, we can talk about the return, what have you, but you found a trading partner that he was going to approve that deal to, which was not a given. You had to move him at a certain time before the rest of his no trade clause kicked in. Like, you were kind of already against the clock here. And again, you look at like where the Bruins are. It's not like the Bruins are fighting with Swayman over this contract because like they only have so much cap space, right? It's not like they have like $6.875 million, and that's as far as they can go. Like, they could give him $9 million if they want to. They probably shouldn't give him $9 million. So like, I could see why they're waiting things out here. Like, they have the fiscal flexibility to accommodate a deal that is 6.5 to 8.5. Like, they give themselves plenty of runway in that regard. It's just, with how negotiations are going, it's just been a bit of a grind. But I don't view it as like a failing of the Bruins in terms of like, oh, they needed to line these things up. Like, you already run a very odd schedule with Ullmark and his trade protections that I just didn't see how that was you weren't going to get all that result in one fell swoop, especially with Swayman and his agents and just the track record there. That does not very rarely do a lot of his representatives get their stuff taken care of that early in the season, unless it's like a top free agent July 1st, UFA status, what have you. But I wasn't expecting anything getting done with a Swayman deal until at least the end of July, early August. So yeah, I just think the timing wise, it's great to say that they should have done all that stuff ahead of time, but actually practicing that, applying that in the middle of the off season, easier said than done.
Yeah, and again, like as I said, if they lose both, if they end up having to trade Swayman or something like that, then it's different. But you had to trade Ullmark. You had to. And there was the case you could have traded Swayman and kept Ullmark and re-signed him, and you'd probably, re-sign Ullmark for a little bit less than maybe Swayman will make down the road. But even then, like Swayman's been your guy in the playoffs. That's the guy you keep. I think we're all in agreement on that. Something else we're all in agreement on. If you want to go to a game, a concert, comedy, whatever, theater, use Game Time. Use your brain. Use Game Time today.
The summer is coming to an end, but rejoice, sports fans, because football season is back. And if you're a Patriots fan and want to make your way to Gillette Stadium, you got to go with Game Time tickets. There's nothing better than posting up with your buddies at a tailgate, working the grill, knocking back a few beers, and taking in that crisp fall air over at Foxborough. With the new Patriots season upon us, now is your time to see Drake May in action, and Game Time tickets will get you the best seats at the best prices to get you into the stadium. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace that makes getting NFL tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to kickoff. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets. There's no shortage of options when using the Game Time app. Game Time Tickets app makes it easy to sort through which specific game or other event you want to attend and shows you the best spots available to take in the action. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And with the Patriots home opener against the Seahawks just weeks away, Game Time Picks has you covered. Game Time Tickets also has you covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry, including event cancellation protection, 24-hour returns guarantee, job loss assurance, and on-time ticket delivery. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Now, let's get back to the show.
So other things other than Swayman were happening at development camp on ice day one on Thursday. One of the surprises, Matt Poitras playing on the wing. And Matt Poitras normally was at center last year. Missed the rest of the season, had to have shoulder surgery. A big question mark coming into training camp. And you and I talked a lot about him throughout the offseason, and we always kind of put him in the center category. Jim Montgomery, though, putting him on the wing, talked about on Thursday about him playing I think it was his 16 year or his 17 year at the wing, but then he played his draft year down the middle. So he does have experience on the wing. There's, he'll get to do a little bit more offense. What do you think of Poitras on the wing?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I think he's a natural center, and even Montgomery mentioned they ideally long-term want to keep him there, but you do wonder where there is more depth down the middle with, obviously, Elias Lindholm takes care of one of those spots. You've got Tyler Johnson vying for a spot, even Georgi Merkulov.
Yes.
So like you have a few of these other guys that are going to be in the running as well. If putting Poitras in a top 6 role, or even on a third line, but on the wing, and has him playing kind of a more simplified kind of game, and he's still going to have that playmaking presence, still going to have the puck on his stick a good bit there. You do wonder if that's something that allows him to kind of simplify his game and just play, to his strengths, right? That's something that he even mentioned of what was kind of the thing he learned later on last year, was that it's all about kind of simplifying, not trying to get kind of too caught up, wait for the next play. You don't have to make a highlight reel play every single time you have the puck on your stick. And kind of like the same thing with like Pavel Zacha, right? Where I think we see how he can benefit from simplifying his game, and not to say that Poitras is going to all of a sudden like be pushed to have a shot first mentality, but if you can add a little bit more playmaking in that spot, and he's also in the running for a spot in the lineup along with like a Fabian Lysell or something like that, it's something we talk about every single training camp. Don Sweeney always mentions internal competition. If all of a sudden Lysell, who was probably viewed as one of the favorites, at least going into the year, for that top 6 spot, if all of a sudden you have a guy in Matt Poitras who's already had NHL reps and is fighting that spot, it's probably a good problem to have if you have those two guys competing with one another for a real featured spot in this lineup.
So that was my first thought, is if you're going to put Poitras on right wing, suddenly he's another candidate for that top 6 second line right wing spot. I mean, we talked about Lysell, we've talked about Frederick, we've talked about Geeky. Now you got Tyler Johnson, and now you add Matt Poitras to the mix of, here's a guy, as you said, who's been up here, who plays a style they like. And, Montgomery even mentioned, sometimes you lost out a little bit on that offensive ability last year because as a center, you have so many responsibilities, especially in the D zone, that you miss out. You don't get to produce as much offense as maybe you'd like. Now you could potentially have him on the right wing. And Marchand, if memory serves, liked playing with Poitras last year. So that's another whole thing of like, you have that. And again, like if you're looking at Matt Poitras as, a guy that's definitely part of your future going forward. And I think we all can agree that he's at least a top 6, center when push comes to shove down the road. Yeah. If that's the case, who better to put him with than a guy like Marchand and Coyle? Like that makes a lot of sense if it works. Now, again, they might move Poitras back to the middle at some point throughout camp. It's not set in stone, obviously. And I think you want Poitras as a center of the future down the road. But letting him kind of spread his wings offensively is not a bad idea. On the wing, Sweeney mentioned it yesterday with Lysell. Like Lysell is not going to be on the 4th line because that's not his game, but anywhere in the top 9 works. So maybe that's slots Lysell down as more of a 3rd line candidate. It's day 1. We don't know. Lots can change, but I do think Poitras playing on the wing, offers up a lot. Now on the 3rd line, I think he also brings a lot there too. If he's with a guy like Geeky, Max Jones, Justin Brazeau, Trent Frederick, whoever it is, I do think you get, you're going to still get a good amount from him, or at least you should get a good amount from him. In terms of other things in the lines, now again, it was 2 groups. Yeah, and that'll be that way on Friday as well. They kind of mix up the players, different guys in different groups, and you had Trent Frederick in one group and you had Morgan Geeky and guys in another. But one line I found interesting was Jones, Geeky, and Brazeau as a potential 3rd line. I'm curious what you thought of them and if you thought any other lines were interesting.
Yeah, definitely a really interesting line. And it's fascinating because they do have so many guys that could mix and match in those spots. Because you mentioned that line and like you look at them and you're saying, all right, that could be a good 3rd line. But then you have like the 4th, I guess the, established 4th line of what it could be. You had like Beecher, Kastelik, and Riley Duran, which a lot to like about that group as well, right? And I think you probably right now, like the favorite in terms of like the three guys on the fourth line on October 8th are probably Beecher, Kastelik, and Jones. I would probably say are the three guys probably in the running there. But like the fact that Duran's already mixed in there is promising. You've got, I think it's just the fact that, again, it is the first day of on ice skating. You've got, this point of camp, a lot of stuff can be mixed around, but you're having, I think, an early glimpse of what some of these lines could be, whether it's, right out of the gate, you've got Zacha, Elias Lindholm, David Pastrnak. You have McAvoy, Zadorov. Jim Montgomery said he liked both of those groups. You've got Charlie Coyle with Fabian Lysell, which is something we've mentioned, right? Of like, if you want to see what Fabian Lysell has, put him with some established NHL talent and see what he can do there. You have Georgi Merkulov down the middle on a line. I think Montgomery said he liked kind of that. It was like him, Letary, and Kepke, I think it was like that. He mentioned that was a line that he liked as well. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of guys that are in spots where if that is how they want to stick with these groupings for at least the first week or so in a preseason game or two, a lot to like about whether it's a glimpse of what we should expect to be the case on October 8th with like that top line. You had the usual suspects on defense, right? You had Lohrei with Peak. You had Lindholm and Carlo together. But I think when you're putting some of these other guys in roles where they could succeed with Lysell, Poitras with Frederick, I believe, just a lot to like about it. I think even though we're at this stage of camp, it's good to start building that chemistry. And I think it's good to see a lot of these younger players. They're not with the guys that we know are going to be in Providence. Like, I'm not going to just rattle off names and do that in terms of being disrespectful of guys we know are going to start the year in Providence. But like, it's good to see these guys that they want to give an opportunity to. All right, let's see how you do with Charlie Coyle or Frederick or other guys that we know where they're going to be in October 8th. But can these younger players kind of fight for their spot as well with the talent around them? I think that's kind of really encouraging to see out of the gate.
And I think it helps that Marchand's out for those guys where guys are playing up a little bit. Maybe like a Max Jones would be more on a fourth line at camp and instead is on a third. But he also could be a third line guy. Like, that's the other thing is, like, we talked about it over the offseason, sort of that untapped potential in a guy like Max Jones. Some other interesting stuff. You had that first line who, they believe is going to be that first line of Zacha, Lindholm, and Pastrnak. And then you also had Fabian Lysell, Charlie Coyle, and Tyler Johnson, which again, Marchand's out. So those two guys, I mean, if you want to look into that, maybe those are the two guys who right now are the favorites for that top six right wing spot. Johnson's an interesting case. We talked to him today. Always usually, went against the Bruins many a time when he was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think working with Lysell, you're sort of hoping Lysell can give you the consistency of a Tyler Johnson in the past. So I also think that's interesting too, where it's like it's not like Tyler Johnson's playing on a potential fourth line in camp. They have higher expectations for him. And I think, he'll make this team if he can prove that he can be a middle six guy. Whereas if he can't through preseason games, then, but Sweeney also made it kind of sound, to me at least, like they wanted him if in free agency, just couldn't really put together the right deal. And then, because he was a PTO, they picked him right up. So there's that end of it too, where he feels like a little bit better than like your typical PTO.
Right. Yeah, no. And again, maybe it depends on whatever the Swayman contract is. Maybe it's something like that, where once you get the remaining big piece of what your cap space is allocated, then maybe you then circle back. But again, it also falls on what Johnson can provide, right? Like, he's still a guy that said today, still thinks he's a good player, thinks he can kind of contribute playing down the middle, playing at wing. The Bruins have had a lot of success with these PTO candidates in the past. How he does on a maybe lesser role where he's not going to be getting, power play one reps like he did in Chicago on a very bad Blackhawks team.
Shout out Nick Foligno, by the way, new captain.
Yes, new captain. Well-deserved. A guy that has been a well-respected guy in a room for many teams for a long, long time. So it's great, I think, for that team with the way they're rebuilding. Having a guy like Foligno leading the charge, great decision by them. But I just think you look at Johnson, like he's a guy that, yeah, if he shows he still has something left in the tank, would not surprise me if whenever the Bruins get the Swayman contract settled, they circle back and see how much money they have left. But again, as we keep on saying, when you get to this time of year, also falls on the player to kind of prove their value. So let's see what he can do once these preseason games get started this weekend, which is crazy.
Sunday, no Patriots. Patriots are Thursday night. So Sunday, instead of football, you can sit back and watch some preseason hockey, baby. 'Tis the season. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, Roy, have you covered every step of the way this preseason training camp all the way through hopefully June and even in the offseason after that, but we don't want to get too far ahead. We have you covered every step of the way with recaps, features, breakdowns, columns, all that good stuff. So you can read all my stuff over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. That has been Poke the Bear. Conor Ryan, Evan Marinofsky, Poke the Bear listeners. Have a great rest of your week.